Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Working Lunch. This is Peter Roper with Nicholas Lee, and I hope you're either listening to this live or you're deciding to listen to a recording later on. We've had some tech issues this morning, but that's nothing new, is it? So I'm delighted to say I'm joined by a very good friend, which is Nicholas Lee. Good morning. Oh, in fact, good afternoon now, Nicholas.
Hi. Hello, Peter. I'm glad to be here. And
Yes.
are we in fact broadcasting to the nation?
Don't we?
We're broadcasting to the nation, are we? That's good to know.
We are broadcasting to the world, not just the nation, believe it or not. But anyway, we've made it. That's the thing. I think 3 lots of tech have all decided today's the day to uprate things and change things. So we got there in the end, and that's the main thing. So
No, I think you got it right. It's definitely the rain.
Yes, let's blame it on that. Well, it's the weather. We're British. What else are we going to do? Hence the reason why, as you can see, we've already got this laid out this way as well. So we're straight into Nicholas's slides. We'll come out of them later on and chat away with it. But for the sake of tech, and then we can all check it out later on. We know this is currently working. So we're broadcast across Facebook, across LinkedIn and YouTube. And hopefully, you'll be listening away and wondering what is it these 2 blokes are going to be talking about, which is making sense of money. So if I kind of start the introduction to that, in that I've known Nicholas now for quite a few years, and he's the one man I know that actually makes sense of most things money. Whenever I think to myself, what the hell do you do about this? I usually say, pick up a phone to Nicholas and say, what the hell does this mean? And 9 times out of 10, he knows the answer. And if he doesn't, he knows somebody that does. And that's the important thing, I think. And I think for you, Nicholas, perhaps give people a background, first of all, perhaps a little bit about your story, your history of how you got to where you are now and why you're so passionate about financial planning, which, of course, is not, let's be clear, it's not about where you're flogging people insurance policies. It's about planning their financial life, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the whole point of it. So my background, Peter, is really, really simple. 20 plus years as a financial advisor. And as everyone knows, what financial advisors do is try their best to give good advice, but that advice is, and I'm going to use the word tainted, is tainted by the need to sell an investment or insurance product, which of course carries charges and commissions with it. And I did that for 20 years. I did it, I hope, reasonably well, but all roads lead to the sale of that product. And in the end, I just got fed up with that. I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I left the industry, spent 10 years working as an acupuncturist, which gave me a lot of different skills and was very different to financial planning. Came back into the industry about 10 years ago now, a little bit more, and decided to approach it as a financial coach and mentor. And the critical issue there is that I have absolutely no relationship with investment products or insurance products. I have nothing to sell. I simply sell my ability and my time and my experience to people, and basically go around their side of the desk, if you like, and sit with them and help them to work things out. And I believe that financial planning, which we're going to talk about and define this morning, is the key to that. It's about creating an individual financial plan for each person. It doesn't mean that you're not going to use investment products like pensions and ISAs and things, but you're going to do it yourself and not get involved in all those dreadful charges and so forth that the financial services industry is so good at levying.
Yes, as we find out, in most people's cases, far too late in life, I think you realise where you're going. Yeah, I mean, don't get. Yeah, I know you're not completely anti the financial institutions. What you're saying,
no.
Having the knowledge to be cleverer about it, I suppose, smarter.
Well, it's not just about being clever. The world's changed over the last 5 years. You can now go online and get every conceivable investment product yourself at significantly lower charges. And it might just be worth. I've got a little bit of paper here, which I've downloaded from one of the excellent websites. The company called Vanguard, a very good website, and they've got a little ready reckoner here for investment costs. Now, I don't know if there's anybody listening this afternoon that's got an investment portfolio, but if they have, and it's being managed for them by a financial advisor of some description, an independent financial advisor or a wealth manager or whatever, what this little ready reckoner is telling me is the effect of a 1% charge on an investment. So let's say you've got, I don't know, £50,000 invested in whatever, ISAs, pensions, or whatever. If that investment fund has got a charge on it, an annual management charge of 1%, over the course of 10 years, you'll only get 90% of your money back. In other words, the charges eat up 10% of the value of the fund. Now, that's just a mathematical, arithmetical fact. And I think it's just something that people should be aware of, because they might say, well, that's great, but I'm getting tremendous value for that. It's really great. And others might say, how much? How are they doing that? Well, they're doing it by just deducting the money very quietly every single month for 10 years. Now, the figures are even worse, of course, if you go over a longer time, 15, 20 years or whatever. The worst one is, where we are, 25 years, you get back 77% of your investment, because the other 23% has been eaten up in charges. So it really is worth paying attention to this stuff, because there's another way of doing it.
I suppose at the end of the day, put it another way, if over 25 years you're going to only get back 77% of your pennies, I mean, they've got to be seriously good at investing for you to get past that and then make the money you were hoping to make.
Yes, that's another story. The whole question of investment, but
okay,
all right. That's another
story.
thing.
So I know, we've got these slides sitting in front of us. Hopefully, the tech lets you do what you'd like to do. And ordinarily, it's never an issue, but today it's kind of challenging. So we will see. Give it a go. Hit some buttons. See what happens.
Well,
let's go through the presentation.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Well, the presentation does involve asking some questions, so we can carry on talking to one another, I think. It's a short presentation. It's really just saying, look, financial planning is actually for everyone. It's not just for rich people or people who've got more than £500,000 or people that happen to know a financial advisor or bankers or people that have inherited a load of money. It's for absolutely everyone. And the interesting thing is that the vast majority of us actually don't do it. We don't do it properly. And there's lots of reasons for that, and we'll come to that a little later. So, guys, financial planning is for everyone. Big question is, what is it? And I was going to ask, I don't know if we've got any access to our audience. I didn't realize that we weren't going to have it. So perhaps it's just going to be you and me, Peter.
I've got comments on at the minute. If people have got
questions,
okay.
Okay. Well, I'm going to come out and just put some stuff in here. So, what is financial planning? If you want to shout out an answer, Peter, that's great. And if you don't, I've got some ideas here anyway.
Well, I guess financial planning is understanding what it is that's going to happen in the future for you.
Okay, I'm going to call that identifiable objectives.
Yeah.
Actually having something, so sitting and saying, I really ought to be doing this or I ought to be doing that.
Yeah.
I also...
I would say peace of mind would be another one, wouldn't it?
Yes. Well, peace of mind actually is one of the things that you get as a result of having a financial plan. Let me just get that spelling right. I can't cope with it. What about controlling your money coming in and coming out? Just control of daily finances. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. And once again, we seem to have got a problem with... There we are. Okay. What about, stuff happens. I mean, everything happens from suddenly you need to replace 2 or 3 tires on the car, the refrigerator breaks down, there's a bit of a hole in the roof, the gutter needs replacing, all that kind of stuff that comes along and hits us. What about being able to deal with what we'll call a financial shock?
Yeah. Rainy day fund.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the more serious but rarer event, something big like a death or a disability, which does happen, but obviously it's not like a bit of a different category to needing to replace the wheels on the tires on the car. I think the other thing that a financial plan does give you is some kind of clarity and security for the people you leave behind.
Yeah.
That may not be the first consideration, but it certainly needs to be part of the planning process. So if I just go back there, let's see what I'm going to ask you more questions now. So how might it change things? Now you mentioned peace of mind.
Yes.
Certainly. Anything else that comes to mind? If you've got a reasonably flexible but robust financial plan, how's that going to change things?
Well, it's not just peace of mind, is it? It's being able to do the things you want to do when you want to do them.
Yes, I get that. Okay, so that's about. Isn't it funny when you can't get something to work properly? Peace of mind. Right. Peace of mind. What would we call that? Flexibility, really.
Yeah.
And options. Flexibility and options. Good.
Just to cut across, I know across on LinkedIn right now, we've got 145 people watching us, but none of you are actually throwing anything out. Do feel free.
It's embarrassing, isn't it? I wish they would. I wish that somebody'd say something to me.
Yeah, if you want to add on to it, you can add on to it, and I will pick up your comments. But don't worry about it. That's on LinkedIn alone. I don't know about. I could look quickly in a minute on Facebook, etc. But isn't it? Let me just come in for a second, though, Nicholas. Isn't it also the case that many people are nervous about talking about money? So when we ask people to put stuff such as that, up right now, they're a little nervous about saying it. Would that be fair?
Yes, it is. It's weird, Peter. This is a family show, I know, but people are willing to talk about their sex lives and to share details that you and I would be horrified to even discuss between you and I. But they're willing to do that rather than talk about money, talk about their finances, talk about their income.
Yeah.
People are very chary, very strange. We'll come to the reasons why they don't engage with a financial planner a little later on. Let's just see if we can talk about a little bit more about what financial planning actually does for people. I think one of the biggies is that you get a clear sense of direction. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
A good plan will give you financial security. You actually know. You actually know. There we are. Roughly where you are, you know where you're headed, you know what you've got in the bank, you know what you've got in investments. You just kind of you set about creating that financial security by your actions and your behavior. And I think the last thing is it never hurts to have a bit of clarity. Never hurts to have a bit of clarity. So There we go. All right, let's go from there. And right, just a quick observation. I suppose now it must be, if we add the 10 years on since 2010, that must be 30 years of talking to people without exception. And this has to include you, I'm afraid, Peter. Me as
Yes.
well. I'm putting my hand up here. Our perception of what we're actually going to need in the future is just like that little picture there. We don't really get it. We don't think it through properly. We don't actually crunch the numbers.
No.
And of course, the reality is there's a big difference between our perception and the reality of what we're going to need in the future. I'm not just talking about retirement. I'm just talking about, 10 years hence. We tend to sort of, not get it really, not allow ourselves to think it through properly. And I think the process of making a financial plan gets you to do that thinking, even though at times it can be a little bit uncomfortable. You actually are, dealing with reality. Now, listen, goal setting. It's really easy stuff. There's nice 5 big questions for you there that are going to solve all your problems. If you can answer those, you're set to go. You're set to create the plan. How much money can you save? How much risk do you want to take? What do you think you'll need in the future? So you might say, okay, I've got myself to 60, let's say. What kind of income are you wanting at that point that you don't necessarily have to work for? Now, bear in mind that there's something called the state pension. You may have got an investment of some description, maybe in a buy-to-let property or whatever, which provides an income. So it's not all about pension planning. It's just about understanding where you're going to get your income from without having to work for it. We call that financial independence. Financial independence is just the ability to have an income that you don't necessarily have to work for. It doesn't mean you have to give up working or retire or anything like that. It's just about creating that independent financial funds, if you like.
Yeah.
When are you going to need it? And that's a decision that you can make as well. Obviously, some people might just say as soon as possible. Well, that's great. We can crunch numbers there and see what that might involve you in saving. And what do you want to leave behind? And I find when I ask that question, lots of people say, I don't want to leave anything behind. Whereas a lot of other people, and again, it's pretty much down the middle, do actually want to leave something to their family.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I know that I've read something recently with somebody very well known who was worth an awful lot of money, who has passed away. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
And the press are very interested in the fact that they can't find out where all the money's gone. Well, of course, the answer is whatever money they had, it's up to them what they did with it. But what the press want to say is, yes, but where did they leave that money? Well, it's their money. They can do what the hell they like.
Yes.
Which is hilarious. But that's typical of the other side of our viewpoint about money, isn't it? Which is, in my hands up, which is, it'll be all right. It'll be tomorrow. We'll crack it some way, somehow, some way. And there's a very British thing going on with that, I think. But it's true on a worldwide basis. People don't talk about money, do they? So they don't, you think about the future, and there are different generations that think differently. Our parents' generation, which was the silent generation, thought of the way of dealing with money very, very differently. We've had this conversation. My parents had two tins, and that was, my mum had the running expenses of the family in the green tin, which I have to this day. And my dad had a little black tin, which he nicknamed the International Monetary Fund, which was when. So when brothers, my brother, who's substantially older than me, he's 11 years older than me, one of us needed some pennies till the end of the month, we'd say, "Dad, how's the IMF?"
How's the IMF getting on?
And funny enough, it was mainly me, not my brother, by the way, because he's much more sensible about it than me. But our viewpoint's very different. I mean, if we think generationally different, you think of people who are coming through, Gen Z, etc. Their viewpoint is very different to a Gen X or a baby boomer or what have you.
Yeah, the younger ones tend to be a little bit more financially savvy, but they still don't really get the future thing. They don't really understand what their financial needs are going to be in the future, but they do tend to be a little bit more careful with their money. And of course, there's another whole generation that's literally struggling to get themselves onto the property ladder, for example. I mean, that's probably one of the great difficulties. And we've watched our own children, and we call them children, but they're in their 30s now, most of them. I've got two in their 40s actually, but they had to work really hard and rely on a bit of the bank of mum and dad to get themselves into their first property and get them on that property ladder. Which, if you think back to when you and I were buying a house, I mean, I bought my first house for 500 quid, but that's a specialist story. It was in a slum of Nottingham, but we won't go there. That's a whole thing, different thing. But my first house, I think, cost 8 grand, 8,000 quid. It was a 2-3 bedroom house. So, and that wasn't such a huge an amount of money even then. And certainly now it would sell for, I would think, 350,000, 400,000 pounds. So that gives you some idea of the ludicrous state of things and how difficult it is for youngsters nowadays.
Yeah, my first house was 8 grand, actually.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah,
and we
that's what you bought.
Sold it 2 years later for 13.5.
It's mad, isn't it? Absolutely mad.
The whole
I can probably.
Bonkers.
Yeah, I can probably tell you a similar story. I bought one for £20,000 in 1984 and sold it in 1986 for 60. That's not sensible. And it's just an ordinary terraced house, nothing special at all. Anyway, we're in danger of becoming a couple of old reminiscent. So let's stop that. So what do you need to do? This is the thing. How do we do this financial planning malarkey? Really easy. Create a budget. It's no good. We're going to have to do it. Money coming in and money coming out. Remember we said taking control of your budget, taking control of your expenditure. Let's have a look at your savings ratio. Let's actually find out how much money you are saving. Now, for those of you that have a job, your company will have a pension fund because they're required to by law. You don't actually, I don't think it's not a law that for you to be a member of it, but they'll be making a pension contribution for you. So that's part of your savings. I talk to a lot of employees these days and we've not got the faintest clue that their company is actually making a pension contribution for them and will match their pension contribution in a lot of cases. And that's basically free money. So far we've spent no money at all. It's just coming from the company. Yeah. So be aware of that. If you're self-employed, obviously we can look at how much money is being saved and take a view. Everything needs to go together in one place. Do you know why? It's more convenient, but also so that we can look at it. Looking at it is probably all that's required. We just kind of be sensible and kind of view it and go, well, that is a bit illogical. You know, I really am spending nearly all of my income. I really ought to be saving some. So how much could I save, or what savings could I make on my expenditure, and just get a feel for the whole picture. Now, you really need to understand your pension, which goes back to the previous thought, and what it means. So what have we got this thing for? I mean, people are not completely aware of the huge tax benefits of a pension fund. So let me just make that one crystal clear. For every 100 quid that you stick into an approved pension fund, the government actually adds in 25 for you. So your 100 quid immediately becomes 125 quid. Now, I think that's just an amazing benefit. It's maybe a little bit boring, but you know, why not take advantage of that tax saving? They're just going to give you the money, 25 quid for every 100 quid. How much do you want to put in? And then there's a whole thing of staying in control with a regular review. We're going to talk a little bit about how I can help people do this. And one of the things that I do is invite people to stay connected with me with a small retainer each month, so that we do get to do those regular reviews and we do stay in control, because I think it's very important. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's where it goes wrong. Does anybody relate to that knotted mess in the middle there.
Totally, completely.
Yeah,
Yes.
I feel the same way. Even when you start to have a conversation with your spouse or your partner, it tends to go a bit sort of haywire, doesn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You can't, it's not, simplistic is not the answer. So we try to sort of think things through and make a bit of progress. I get myself in an awful mess. Most of the people I work with do, and that's what my job is, to just untangle that god awful mess and create some kind of, well, I call it elegant simplicity. It is pretty straightforward, but it doesn't feel like it, and I think that's the point. Right, so here we go. Back to more conversation. What do you think you might get out of sorting out your finances? Tell me.
Well, losing everything.
What?
Losing a lot. Well, I would say that, you know, that people know my story, and we did lose a lot at one point back in 2007, and that was because our finances weren't right. Now, to be fair, it was with business, but it's the same principle. That is the ultimate fear for most people.
Okay.
It's extreme.
Other reasons that people might not, for example, talk to a bloke like me and get things sorted out.
They're shy.
Yes.
Shy stroke reserved.
Yes.
Nervous. Yeah. Reserved. They're nervous about really revealing where they actually are.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay, I've got a couple that I keep coming across. One is assume it's for people with loads of money.
Yeah.
So I need 200 grand or else he's not going to be interested. And if you're thinking about getting financial advice, i.e. going to a registered, regulated financial advisor, you'd be right. Because of the way that they think these days, and because of their commercial imperative to get money under management, if you haven't got £250,000, they're really not interested. Mm-hmm. They might pretend to be for a while if they think there's something there, but mostly they're not. They can't afford to deal with people at that level. The other reason that people don't talk to a financial planner, which is what I am, help people create financial plans, is cost. They think it's going to be swingingly expensive, and either they feel they can't afford it or they don't want to. Yeah. They don't understand the cost. So I mean, I'm facing that one head on because I think people do feel it's inordinately expensive.
Although it doesn't have to be.
Well, that's coming next. I'm going to put some numbers on it so that people can see that it isn't an especially expensive thing.
In that case, let's move on to the next slide.
Is time passing, Peter?
Time is passing, yeah, believe it or not. We've got about 17 minutes left. So
the way I can help people get started with this is, first of all, I'll do 30 minutes free and answer any question that you've got. The other reason that people don't want to get involved with a financial planner is they think the time commitment's too much. Well, once you've got yourself sorted out, it's something like a couple of hours every 6 months, so it's not a big deal. I offer very flexible options. I'll do an ad hoc hourly rate. You can just come to me for 1 hour and ask me some questions if that's what you want. For that, I'll charge you £130. Or we can have a series of those kind of meetings at intervals if that's what you want. I will also do a monthly retainer for a year. So for a year, you pay me £50 a month. For that, you get 2 longish, quite long meetings where we really get you sorted out, help you to create your objectives and get the financial plan underway. And then, of course, we'll review everything towards the end of that year and take you on from there. You also have unlimited email support in between those meetings. So I can only make that as available as possible. I'm pretty sure if you start to compare that with the amount of money you're spending on, your phones and all the rest of it, even on coffees, you'll probably find that it's not that expensive. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, it definitely does. I think let's go mad and see if we can free the screen, shall we? Do you want to see if you can free your screen? I was like, there you go. We're all right. We knew it'd work back that way. I am conscious of time, but I think you've explained that very elegantly, as ever, Nicholas. I knew you would do.
Thank you.
It's a funny old game, this, isn't it? Money. So many of us, I say us, think we've got things in order, and then, but deep down, perhaps no, perhaps we haven't, or it's a case of, well, we'll look at it next week. We'll look at it manana. We'll look at it next year. And if you get to our sort of age, it's a bit late to do a lot, but there's still things you can do, as I know you've proven to us as a family. But for people who are young that are listening to this right now,
yep,
you mentioned,
how are we defining young? 30?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yes, I guess so. Yes,
Okay.
to us, 30 is definitely young. But all right. Or for those of us that are older that have got kids that are 30, in that realm. What's besides the obvious, which is to come and talk to you, which they really ought to. What's the one bit of advice you'd give to them? What's the one thing you would suggest to them?
Just one thing, or can I have two?
Go on, have two. You can go back.
All right. The first big thing is be really careful that you're not spending money to impress other people.
Yeah.
In other words, we've got to have a bigger house. Yeah. We need another car. There's a lot of pressure on us, and of course it's subconscious, it's not obvious. There's a lot of pressure on younger people to keep up, to show that they're doing well. And the way that you show you're doing well is by the type of car you're driving, where you live, and so on and so forth. All of that's fine. It's just that nobody's really noticing. I always remember went to an old, years ago, something called the $1 Million Round Table in the States, this great speaker. And he was quite passionate. He was American, you know what they're like. And he said, but you can't see yourself in the car. You're driving along in this fabulous motor car, but you can't see yourself. You can only sort of hope that everyone's noticed that you're driving a Jag or a BM or whatever it is that's. And my point really is that those things erode our wealth. They take money away from everything that in the end, by the time we get to yours and my stage of the game, we realize is actually really important. It never was about the houses and the cars. And we just needed to learn that. It took us about 20 or 30 years. So don't go out there buying stuff. Buy stuff for your own reasons. If a car is the big thing for you and the pleasure of driving it, but don't do it to impress anyone. Just ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I need to replace the car every 3 years? Etc. I think the other thing is that, and it's just really obvious, you're never going to make way financially in the world. Never going to make any headway at all unless you spend less than you earn. And it doesn't matter what you earn. So if you earn £35,000 a year, the net of that is, I don't know what it is, £2,500 a month or something. You need to spend £2,000 and save 500 quid in various ways. Sometimes that saving is just for next year's holiday. Some of it will be for the future. But you've got to get a grip on expenditure. They say that when you get a salary increase, you should immediately put 25% of it into a savings plan, because otherwise you're just going to get involved in what they call lifestyle creep. So you've got a bit of extra money in the bank, and you decide that you need to go out for a meal 3 times a month rather than 2, or you'd start the upgrade with the car or the house or whatever, and lifestyle just you know, but we're successful. I'm going to make a one final thing about saving, which always attracts me. It always gets me going. Every bit of money that you save now is you giving it to your future and giving yourself freedom in the future. That's such a lovely idea. So if I save a little bit of money now, put it aside, let it grow, I'm buying myself free time in the future. I think it's quite an interesting idea.
I think that's a really nice thing to think about, and I think it's probably a good way to finish this. I note that more people have been listening as well, which is great. And so I know that I've found it useful. Nicholas, as ever, that's great. At the end of the day, Working Lunch is all about this. At the end of the day, it's all about you and your story. It's about how you can provide information to people. It's how you can share your experiences, and it doesn't mean to say everyone we have a recording are all of a senior age. We have people of all ages on, so the experience is all relative. At the end of the day, it's about your story. If you think that you've got something to share that is worthwhile and people need to listen to it, I'd love to talk to you about it, because it is all about your story. That's a subtle hint. There is some new branding coming, so I just thought I'd just put that on there. But for now, we're on Working Lunch. That's me. Isn't that exciting? So thank you, Nicholas. Really appreciate it. I think that's been some really useful sage advice. And I look forward to seeing you soon. So thanks very much indeed.
All right. Thank you very much for having me, Peter.
Thanks, Nicholas. Cheers now.